We are back once again live with another Johnny Torch Live broadcast, number 94, with our 93rd edition of the Torch News Roundup. On the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live. Of course, we always bring you a Torch News Roundup, usually once a week. Sometimes we skip a week, sometimes two in a week. So you never quite know what the future holds. So, welcome on this final day of June in the year of our Lord, 2018. It is hot out here. Hot AF, hot as fire. And I've got a fan over here pointing toward yours truly. So in case you hear that, that might be the little bit of background noise, white noise as it were. Don't want to put the air conditioner on because I think that'll make way too much noise. Okay, so welcome into the show, starting a little bit early. Had this set for 5 o'clock, but I was ready. And I say, as always, when I'm ready, the show starts. Then nobody watches it live anyway, so it doesn't matter. Speaking of that, if you are watching it live or close to live at the time, we have the poll of the week questions. I did a couple of polls last week, and they are nearing their completion. You have literally 5 hours left as of now for just turned 4:11 Eastern Standard Time. And it's a two-part poll. Well, it's two-part polls, actually. The first one is best villain of the year for the television superhero shows. Basically wrapping up what we were doing our last video, which was all the best TV shows that we did, ranking them from 12 to 1. Well, I took 8 of the villains of these shows, and you can tell me what you thought of them and who was the best. Okay, 5 hours left you have. Best TV supervillain of the year. The first poll, the choices are between Rain from Supergirl, The Thinker from The Flash, Caden James / Ricardo Diaz from Arrow, and Malice from Legends of Tomorrow. We got 49 votes, which was pretty good showing. In last place, James / Diaz. In third place with James Diaz with 14% of the vote. In third place with 22% of the vote, Rain. In second place with 25% of the vote, Malice. And in first place with a whopping 39% of the vote, The Thinker. So most of y'all were pleased with The Thinker this season. Now, part 2, we had some more villains from another category here. We had Jeremiah from Gotham, Cassius from Cassius from Legion of Tomorrow. I was looking at the wrong chart. No, I just said it again. We've got Cassius from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ugh. That's what happens when you get no sleep, but that's a story for another time. You don't want to hear about me and my first world problems. The guy next door with the dog barking at the crack of dawn. And I'm a night owl as it is. Okay, Tobias Whale in third place. And no, that's our third option. And Brainiac. Let me get through this as fast as possible. So in fourth place, with 51 votes in this poll, in fourth place, we had Tobias Whale at 16%. In third place, we had Brainiac at 22% from Krypton, of course. In second place with 25%, Cassius from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And in first place with 37% of the vote, a whopping, resounding vote of confidence for Jeremiah from Gotham. That would probably be both for Jeremiah and Jerome, but Jeremiah was sort of hailed as the main villain, I think, of this season. And the second poll we had was the best sidekick. Who was your favorite character that brought aid and sometimes hindrance to our heroes this year? So this is more of like guest starring ones that were brought in this year. This is not like, we're not going to count John Diggle or something like that. We're talking about the guys that were just brought in this year, and sometimes they didn't fit in too well. They had opposing problems with the, hero or team at large. Okay, the first choices are Black Siren, Elongated Man, John Constantine, and Kid Flash. With 61 votes, this was a pretty, this one was probably our best showing of respondents. In last place, Elongated Man with 8%. I think we got one vote for the poor guy. I liked him. I don't know. In third place, this was a hotly contested battle, and as it stands right now, with 26% of the vote, John Constantine takes third place. In second place, with 27% of the vote, with a tentative second place lead over Constantine, Kid Flash from Legends of Tomorrow, and in first place, with a whopping 39% of the vote, Black Siren. Okay, and wrapping it up here with our second part of the best sidekick vote poll we had. With 45 votes, the nominees are General Zod from Krypton, Thunder from Black Lightning, Deke from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Christopher Chance from Arrow. Again, Christopher Chance only got one vote, apparently. He got 9% of the vote in last place. In third place, General Zod, who kind of was my choice in this one, with 24% of the vote. In second place, a very hotly contested battle that went back and forth. But Deke from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets 31% of the vote. And Thunder apparently is going to take the lead. Like I said, it's been back and forth between Thunder and Deke this whole week. But Thunder apparently is going to pull away with a victory with 36% of the vote for Black Lightning. So if you want to vote in that poll, see if you can influence some of those closer ones, get over to my Twitter page. You'll find the link in the description below. I try to come up with some poll questions, and I try to communicate them a little better than I did today, but quite often I don't. We have a lot to talk about here, so after I take a sip of the old H2O, we will get on with it. Okay. And remember, folks, if you are part of this heat wave, make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you keep the old folks and the pets indoors. And, of course, that, means the little kids as well. Make sure as well that you check on your neighbors, check on the elderly, make sure that they're all taken care of. Because at least up here in the Northeast, I don't know how well this is going to spread across like the Southwest or anything, but up here in the Northeast, we're going to have a full week of 90-degree temperatures. And it's going to go straight through the 4th of July celebration, the 4th of July week, starting this 4th of July weekend, I guess you would say, and it's going to continue on for the full week. I hear 99 degrees about a week from now, I think Thursday, something like that, for our Independence Day holiday here in the United States of America, still the greatest nation on God's earth. And it's not even a question. Okay, so let us move on now. We've had our fun there for a little bit now. Let us get into the actual stories of the week. Let's start off with probably the smallest news of the week, the smallest bit of business for the week. We have Doctor Strange sequel news. If you're like me and you really enjoyed Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange, I thought he stole the show in Infinity War. I thought he was the MVP there. You're going to be happy to hear that finally there are some signs of a Doctor Strange sequel in the works. Kevin Feige was quoted as saying, "Sometimes it's where do those characters pop up? Doctor Strange, whenever we do another Strange one, which we will do, it will be a number of years from the first Strange, and yet he's a very big part of Infinity War." So it's great for fans like me that just wanted to hear the confirmation that we'll indeed get another Doctor Strange film, because I kind of got the feeling maybe he was just going to pop up in different solo films of different heroes. Maybe he would be in Spider-Man, the sequel. Oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot to put this in the news. This has just come to my attention. That's right. The Spider-Man sequel news. Tom Holland, perhaps against his his own intention, broke the news that the Spider-Man sequel is going to be called Spider-Man Far From Home. So you get two updates in this one news story right here. And it seems like they're going to go for a home motif in all of these Spider-Man films. The first one, of course, called Homecoming. Second one, Far From Home. I'm guessing the third one's going to be called Homeward Bound. Maybe with the Simon and Garfunkel song as the theme. But anyway, I should have had this done as an actual story. But then again, it's basically just a slip up of good old Tom Holland. You can always depend on him to let any secret blurt out. And, we love the guy. I mean, I'm not making fun of him. I mean, it's just what reminded me of this was the Benedict Cumberbatch interview with Tom Holland. They were both being interviewed. And Cumberbatch basically saved Tom from a very expensive breach of contract for accidentally letting out any info on Infinity War. That was very funny. You should check that out on YouTube. You just check out Tom Holland, Benedict Cumberbatch interview. That'll probably be the thing that shows up. But yeah, what do you think of that title? Spider-Man Far From Home, which apparently the little bit that we know about the film is that it's going to take place a large part in Germany. And also, Jake Gyllenhaal is playing Mysterio. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed now, because when we broke the news last week when we were talking about it, I think it was sort of just being reported that he was in talks. But I think it's official now that Jake Gyllenhaal will play Mysterio. And I've always wanted to see Mysterio as the villain. I certainly want to see him with the big fishbowl head, with the green suit and the purple cape. They better make him pretty darn accurate to the comic, or I will be very seriously angry. And you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Okay. Again, this also leads to speculation of why are Marvel supposedly, at least seemingly, distancing themselves from everything that made Spider-Man great? Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, taking on from the small problems, not having Uncle Ben's memory even evoked once. Again, I think Spider-Man Homecoming was actually the worst MCU movie, and we'll get to that once I see Ant-Man and the Wasp. We'll probably re-rank them one more time, because originally it was Guardians 2, but after rewatching them all, I'm going to give it to Spider-Man Homecoming. It doesn't feel like a Spider-Man. It doesn't feel like the traditional Spider-Man movie. Let's put it that way. The way I always describe it is it feels like Spider-Man in a Disney sitcom, and not like the actual Spider-Man that we know from the comics. Let's get back to Doctor Strange for a second before we switch topics here. But I was afraid Doctor Strange was only going to show up in other characters' films, such as Spider-Man, or perhaps, probably not Captain Marvel, because that's a done deal now, but maybe the Captain Marvel sequel. And at least now we have confirmation of a Doctor Strange solo. We have confirmation that apparently Baron Mordo's story will continue on, because we did leave it with a cliffhanger there. But then again, that doesn't mean anything to Marvel. They left the leader as a cliffhanger. They kind of have the real Mandarin out there as a cliffhanger. So let's just hope that they capitalize on Baron Mordo and Chiwetel Ejiofor. Still waiting in the wings. Okay, so let me know what you think in the comments below about our Doctor Strange / Spider-Man news. I thought I was taking too fast getting the news together this week, because I said to myself, ain't I forgetting something that broke last week? That's what happens when you wait this long for news. Everything starts getting pushed to the side. All right, now we are going to stay in Spider-Man territory here for this next one, this next news. Let's see. All right, with Venom coming out in a solo film this year, we have confirmation of casting for the Morbius movie. Jared Leto will star as Morbius. Jared Leto, I think, is the actual pronunciation. Okay. I almost Grace Randolphed his name. She always mispronounces everybody's name. And we are going to get to that story later on. Grace Randolph breaking this big news about Star Wars. And we're going to get to that in a second. But first, Jared Leto as Morbius. I can see it, although I think we all know and would agree that Michael Jackson would have been the greatest Morbius actor. Of course, they might have had to dub him over with, like, um, what's that guy's name from Max von Sydow? Max von Sydow, last scene I think in The Force Awakens, right? He did the voice of Vigo in Ghostbusters 2, so that's why he came to mind. He's got that great voice. Of course, he played Jesus in the original classic, The Greatest Story Ever Told. Guy's had a career, hasn't he? Okay, so, of course, not a lot of details out about this. What do you think about Jared Leto as Morbius? I think he's got that kind of gaunt, haunted face that would probably play a great Morbius. So, yeah, he's a great choice. They're at least going after good actors, Sony. You can't doubt that. I mean, they went after I almost called him Oliver Hardy. Tom Hardy. They went after Tom Hardy for Venom, and going after Jared Leto for the Oscar-winning Jared Leto as Morbius. I'm sure that's going to help their stock go up a little bit, trying to sell this movie. All right, Daniel Esposito, or Espinosa. I got my vowels mixed up. Daniel Espinosa, Scandinavian filmmaker who helmed Safe Life and Safe. I think I better just stop this now and just start over because I don't know what's going on with me, man. This is what happens when it's 95 degrees and you got 5 hours sleep. Daniel Espinosa. So what do you call it? The Espinosa. Me no speak of the Espinosa. Daniel Espinosa, the Scandinavian filmmaker who helmed Safe Life and last year's sci-fi thriller Life, will direct the feature, which has a script by Burke Sharpless and Matt Samza, the duo who created Netflix's Lost in Space remake, which I haven't seen, by the way, but I haven't even seen Luke Cage yet. I'm excited about Luke Cage. I want to see Luke Cage. Of course, Avi Arad still hanging on to Sony for dear life, and Matt Tolmec will produce with Lucas Foster. So let me know what you think. Is Jared Leto a good choice for Michael Morbius, the scientist turned living vampire? Because remember, he was turned into a vampire by a science experiment, as most of Spider-Man's villains did. Another Spider-Man villain with no Spider-Man, apparently. What do you think about that as well? Science, for some reason, I can't remember the whole story, but science transformed him into a living vampire, needing to exist on the blood of the living, just like an actual vampire. He was introduced in Spider-Man 101, the first Spider-Man issue not written by Stan Lee. And it was written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Gil Kane in 1971. Okay, so there we are with that. And let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, my notes are not made out in order this time, so you're going to have to bear with me because I am saving some things for later. I am not going to get to. I'm saving the big stories for later. I save the long, drawn-out stories for later. Okay, so next up we have news about that there Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And my boy Michael, he's going to love hearing this because he's a big Sonic fan. My boy. Shout out to my boy Michael. This is for you. This is Jim Carrey, crazy old Jim Carrey, not to be confused with crazy young Jim Carrey, who, who's talented, but crazy old Jim Carrey just sort of runs his mouth and goes crazy, and crazy in that sense. I don't know what else to say about that, but according to Deadline, Sonic's nemesis, Dr. Robotnik, a.k.a. Eggman, will be played by Jim Carrey, who has signed on the dotted line. The character is expected to be a mix of live action and CGI. Although the film is expected to be a mix of live action and CGI, the character is expected to be played without any additional FX. So apparently this is just going to be Jim Carrey in a balloon suit, I guess, with a funny mustache glued on. I'm not sure. Plot details are sparse, but we know that the Sega video game adaptation will see the Superfast Sonic attempting to stop Dr. Eggman from completing his plans for world domination. So I'm honestly going to be disappointed if they just refer to him as Dr. Eggman. I hope they're going to refer to him as Dr. Robotnik because I'm old school. If you haven't, check out the original Sonic cartoon. He's had many. I think the original is still the best. And Archie Comics carried on with that storyline for quite a while. As I said, my brother collected those comics. When he started collecting them, I used to read them to him because he was so young. And then he collected them straight on through adulthood. So that is really cool when you can, jump onto a series like that almost from the beginning and just like, collect it all the way through its entire inception. I believe they're still carrying on with that. I'm not sure if it's probably not Dark Horse. I don't know. Maybe it's Dynamite. I don't know. I don't really know too many about the the ongoings of the comic scene anymore. I really don't. But I know there is a comic that there's still a company that's carrying on with the original concept of Sonic for American kids anyway, which was Sonic the Hedgehog with Princess Sally Acorn, Bunny Rabbit, Antoine de Colette, Rotor, which originally was called Boomer, but they called him Rotor in the cartoon. Snidely. Yeah, that brings back a lot of memories. I used to watch that show. That was only on for one season, and it was a really cool cartoon. Back in the mid-'90s, I think it was. Then various incarnations happened. There was the Sonic, going down memory lane with Sonic the Hedgehog. There was the cartoon with Scratch and Grounder and Tails, Miles Prowler, known as Tails, aka. And that was the one with, Scratch and Grounder. Grounder basically was like Barney Rubble. Hey, Scratch, what are we doing? Scratch used to do this annoying laugh. And they would do just basically 20 minutes of nonsense, shenanigans. And, you get a laugh out of it, I guess. But it was more for the under 8 set. My brother, when he was about that age, would like it. Then they moved on to Sonic Underground, which was another cool variation where it was Sonic with Sonia and Manic, his twin brother and sister, or triplet brother and sister, I guess. And they were trying to find their long lost mother. That one wasn't as endearing, I don't think, as the original. In the original, I think Sally was looking for her father who was trapped in for all intents and purposes, the Phantom Zone, but I can't remember what it was called in the Sonic verse. But yeah, Sonic has always been near and dear to me, so I'm looking forward to this movie if they will try to do something like close to that, but I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I can't be too excited if they're just going to do an adaptation of, I think, the video game, which doesn't have. I think they have like Shadow and Amy Rose. That's their cast. They did a cartoon like that back about 10 years ago, I think, in the 2000s, in the mid 2000s. I think it was like a little boy was son of a scientist or something. I don't know, but that's probably the version they're going on. That's not my Sonic, but again, at least Sonic is still existing in this live action world, which that's another thing. I hope this is not going to be like the Smurfs, where you basically just have the one character running around in the real world. You know what I mean? I liked it better when they were just like the woodland creatures. You know what I mean? If he's going to be like the only character, well, they'll probably bring back, like I said, Amy Rose and some of those other characters. But I don't want to see them running around with Neil Patrick Harris. You know what I mean? No offense to him, of course, but I mean, I just don't want to see them running around with whatever name celebrity they're going to get to play the human counterpart. That's like, that's not Sonic to me. All right, so let me know what you think about Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Ivo Robotnik / Dr. Eggman in the live action adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog. And what do you think this means for the movie being a animated, being a full feature film? Because traditionally, video game adaptations of into feature film have never done well, and needless to say, Sonic's counterpart, Mario, he had his shot at the big screen, and that, of course, was a dismal failure. Bob Hoskins, I don't think I ever sat through it because it looked like it was so poorly made. Does Mario deserve another shot here in live action after, what is it, 30 years now? He had the more popular television show with Captain Lou Albano playing Mario. Again, I grew up with Super Nintendo. Oh no, what was it? Nintendo 64, is that the one? Yeah, I think it was Nintendo 64 that I had the first one, the gray one. And I played Mario, of course, till I was blue in the face. My paisano, Mario. And Luigi. I used to like Luigi a little bit more because I think he was a little bit faster, wasn't he? When he used to play as Luigi, he used to be able to run fast and jump higher, something like that. So I like Luigi. But, I like Mario. But, yeah, we mostly had the Sega. After Nintendo, we moved on to Sega, and we played all the Sonic games. But anyhow, yeah, that's cool. Let me know what you think. Will this be a success, or will this go the way of the usual video game adaptation movies? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know what you think about Jim Carrey as Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik, hopefully. All right, another brief news story that came out not too long ago. We have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles apparently going to head back to the big screen. They're still going to be produced by Michael Bay, which is what gives a lot of people pause as to whether this is going to be a reboot or are they going to carry on with the Megan Fox, Stephen Amell version that came out past couple of years, 2 movies. While I was not a huge fan of this design or, the overall first movie was a mess, and they really needed to clean it up in order to appeal to the fans. I mean, they had like a white guy was going to play Shredder when we all know it should be a Japanese actor. They finally threw in some reshoots to make the actor Japanese to play the Shredder. They kind of weirdly twisted the origin to connect April to them. I don't know. I mean, for me, the original Turtles movie from 1990 is the gold standard. I don't think they'll ever be able to suppress that. But I liked Megan Fox as April. I didn't think she was too bad. I didn't mind Stephen Amell's Casey Jones. My problem with that, though, is I really didn't like the fact that they made him a policeman and coming out of the shadows and that they were sort of being embraced by the law enforcement. That really didn't appeal to me. I did like that they put Bebop and Rocksteady in it. Seamus playing Rocksteady. Krang finally appearing. I mean, so it had some things going for it, although if they scrapped it to start over, I would just be afraid that they're not going to go back to that storyline, because as much as the first movie was a mess, Splinter learning from ninja books and whatever, as much as that first movie was a mess, they kind of built on it for the second, and I would like to see them carry on from there with Casey Jones and Krang and Bebop and Rocksteady, but it really isn't set on the firmest foundation, this franchise. So I can understand if they want to reboot it. Again, as I said, see these images here. Not really the greatest looking turtles. They should be a little more, well, for lack of a better term, cute and cuddly looking. Anyhow, Andrew Dodge, and I'm going to dodge that one, is set to pen the script. He scripted Bad Words, the 2013 vehicle for Jason Bateman. Let's see. Michael Bay, Andrew Form, and Brad Fuller will once again produce the TMNT film for Paramount. So what do you think about this one? Another childhood favorite, another favorite from Archie Comics. They did the comics for a long time. That's another one where I felt bad that I didn't stay with Archie Comics long enough. I actually had the first few issues. Of course, they probably got torn up and ruined because I had them as a kid. And it'll break my heart if I ever go looking forward to see if it's still in the salvaged boxes of comics from when I was a kid. But yeah, they did a series straight up until I think, Splinter taught April, and they really went further along down the line. They made full use of all the characters that were brought in from the toy company, I think, like Usagi Yojimbo, Mondo Gecko, Leatherhead, I think. Wasn't that? Yeah, I think all those things came to play in that Archie comic version, but they lost the rights to that as well, and so on and so forth. But let me know what you think in the comments below about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, do you want to see a third film in the Michael Bay franchise, seeing as how he's still producing, or do you want them to scrap it and start over from the beginning? I'm sort of torn on that one. I don't know exactly what I would do, but I think you already have the foundation. You make a third film, then you rest on it for about 5-10 years, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to do like they did with the animated shows. They're not going to want to try to recapture what made Turtles great. You're going to have Teenage April. You're going to have Black April. You're going to have Turtles looking like, even more big and buff. I don't know. It's like you can't trust Hollywood to do the right thing, especially in Michael Bay's hands. I don't see how this is going to get any more accurate to the original concept of the Turtles, the way we grew up with them in the mid to late 80s. Okay, this one, this story came out just, I think, a day ago. But apparently, Indiana Jones 5 is not going to make its release date. I'm not exactly sure why. There are conflicting stories here. Of course, this here is George Hall, who played the, I want to say 95-year-old Indiana Jones. I'm not sure exactly how old he was supposed to be. But at this rate, I think they're going to probably CGI George Hall into the movie. And that was a character that was put into the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. If you guys never seen that show, you're probably not missing a whole lot. There were a couple of good episodes. There was a couple of good episodes. I liked seeing Indy in World War I. That was kind of cool. Apparently, Indy survives to old age, and then they removed the scenes of George Hall's Indiana Jones, 90-year-old Indy, sort of just scrapping them so that I guess there would be doubt in people's mind whether Indy survived. I always kind of felt that Indy would survive. I'm not sure why they would do that in that context, take him out. But so apparently Indiana Jones survives into at least the 90s, from what we know, is a 95-plus-year-old man, still dressing pretty much the way he did as Professor Jones, still having the traditional hat that he always had, the fedora. Apparently he loses his eye at some point, unless someone's going to tell me that maybe he just got glaucoma or something, God forbid. And that's the reason why he wore the eye patch. I don't know. And he also had I guess he had the son because, of course, Mutt Williams. I thought he had a daughter because there was in one episode he was being taken care of by his daughter or something, but maybe that was his daughter-in-law. But apparently he would tell these stories to anybody who would listen. And Harrison Ford, they even got him back to do the sort of bookends of an episode, which was mildly amusing. I mean, it was basically, the episode itself was, I think, about Indiana Jones learning about jazz and the effects of racism that was in the 1930s, which, it was kind of SJW heavy even for that time in the early 90s. We're having like a whole episode of, revolving around that. But again, Sean Patrick Flanery, I thought was a good young Indy. I kind of felt he would have played a good young Indy had they made episodes that were actually exciting. He could have played an exciting Indy. Of course, there was, like I said, a number of World War I episodes that I thought were pretty fun. Of course, you don't associate Indiana Jones with World War I really, so it kind of, seeing him, in World War I planes and stuff like that, particularly when he can't fly, according to the movies. So I don't know. It was a crazy time. But anyway, apparently they were not fully satisfied with David Koepp's first draft of the film. Koepp, of course, wrote the first Spider-Man movie, and I believe he was also responsible for a previous Indiana Jones movie that was going to take place before Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it was Indiana Jones, the Monkey King. Is that the one it was? I'm not sure. Don't hold me to it, but I'm pretty sure he did that script, which was kind of a crazy script. Him and a bunch of others. In a monkey civilization, basically, by Gorilla Grodd. Not quite what we would associate with Indiana Jones, but that was also the film, I think, that he would have gotten married as well. It had the cameos of Willie Scott and Marion Ravenwood, and he would, I think, marry a redhead who was not ever in any of these films. So there you go. But that would have been back circa 1995, where, you would have had a long heroic series apparently still ahead of him. So Lucasfilm and Spielberg decided it was in their best interest to hire a new writer. Entered Jonathan Kasdan, who co-wrote Solo, a Star Wars story with Lawrence Kasdan. So, if you liked Solo, a Star Wars story, I imagine you're going to like this. If you were up in arms about Jonathan Kasdan with Solo, a Star Wars story, you're probably not going to like this. He's probably going to suggest that Mutt Williams is pansexual or something, and some of that other crazy stuff. Is that what he's going to put into this? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But one way or the other, we are going to get that Indiana Jones 5, although apparently it will not come out in 2019. Speculation is that it will be released in they'll begin production in 2020 for a 2021 release. So what do you think about this? Will they actually ever make the Indiana Jones 5 movie? I think they still will. They're saying Ford will be 78 years old at the time of shooting, which, let's face it, what difference does it make? He's 77 now. If they started shooting now, 1 year isn't going to make any difference. But, you know, we keep pushing this little train up the hill, and Ford's going to be 80 years old pretty soon. He's going to look like George Hall pretty soon at the rate they're going. He still looks great. Don't misunderstand. He has got genes like a son of a gun. He looked great as young Han Solo. Not young Han Solo, but he looked good as Han Solo in The Force Awakens. He looks great in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So there's no reason to believe that he will, age all that much in 2 years. So let me think. Let me know what you think in the comments below about Indiana Jones 5. Will it ever be made? Should it ever be made? A lot of people are just washing their hands of it at this point, saying Kingdom wasn't that great, it was a mediocre movie to be sure, but it wasn't a bad film, I don't believe. I think if they tighten it up and have a MacGuffin that's a little more awe-inspiring and not the aliens crap that kind of didn't feel like Indiana Jones, I think they'll do pretty good. And you kind of want them to go out in a bang, sort of like like I said, I don't think that I would have any problem with the series ending after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull if Ford chose never to come back. But you got a chance to end it with a real big bang. I say do it. All right, we're going to move over from Indiana Jones and Lucasfilm to Star Wars and Lucasfilm. And yes, this was the big story. This was a subject of, look at those beauties. Look at those beauties. I don't know who did this, but you got my undying loyalty for creating this image. We've got Darth Rian Johnson. We've got Darth Kathleen Kennedy. And there's been a lot of news about this over the past week. I sort of chose to sit on it and not really report yet, but apparently the word was out that they were going to not scrap, but let's say shelve the Solo films, the spin-off films, whatever way you want to call them, and that the Obi-Wan film and the Boba Fett film that were due to be in production very soon would be at least put on the shelf for the foreseeable future. Of course, Rian Johnson's saga would not be touched, and his is still set to begin in 2020, I believe. And I think the Game of Thrones guys, I don't remember their names, but they were still set to continue with their movies. But there were not going to be any more spin-off films because, of course, Lucasfilm is going to get the wrong message, of course, from Solo underperforming. Not that it was because everybody hates spin-off films, but because everybody, is not satisfied with Kathleen Kennedy's, method of filmmaking and the way she's basically SJW'd the entire Star Wars universe. Now, the second big news story, people have backed off that since now, saying that, no, Obi-Wan is still definitely in production, and possibly some of the other films are as well. Boba Fett, I forget what else was on the table. But the big story was Grace Randolph broke the story that her inside sources have relayed to her that, well, I'll just get to the notes here. These are not verbatim what she said. This is somebody else online that pretty much put it down in writing so that I could read it for you here. But Disney staged a big secret conference call with ranking people in the Star Wars division. Security guards were posted outside the doors at offices to prevent eavesdropping. Pixar and Marvel representatives were able to listen in on the call, but not actively speak on it. Apparently, this was allowed to get feedback at a later point about the Star Wars situation. Disney's head Bob Iger wants to fire Kathleen Kennedy, but there's a problem. No one that they're willing to offer the job to is willing to take it. J.J. Abrams was offered the job, according to Randolph, but he turned it down flat. Several others, quote unquote, were approached, including Kevin Feige, who had already dismissed the notion. One person that's brought up as a possible replacement for Kennedy, Dave Filoni, isn't being considered for the job by Iger because he hasn't run a studio. Randolph said that no one wants the job because the Lucasfilm team is divided between the old guard Star Wars people and Kennedy's hand-picked loyalists. Now, this is what I said. Let me interject right here. I said if they ever do replace Kathleen Kennedy, which they will at some point, they are going to pick one of her loyalists. They're going to pick someone as bad as her because once you get SJWs entrenched in an office, once they are taken off a project, they are usually brought back somewhere else. Now, in a case like this, they're not going to bring back Kathleen Kennedy somewhere else within the franchise, but they are going to keep her tethered to the role so that her underling, whoever it may be, will basically be operating as proxy what Kathleen Kennedy would have done. That is how SJWs infiltrate into a franchise, into an into the genre, and basically lay down roots. They don't go away quietly, and they will have one of their proxy take over for them once they leave office. Randolph said that Disney feels that Star Wars is too targeted to older SJWs instead of its traditional fan base of men, and this is also hurting Star Wars and its merchandise sales, as older SJWs don't really buy movie tickets and certainly don't spend a lot of money on Millennium Falcon playsets. She also reports that all the Star Wars anthology movies are indeed on hold as Disney tries to figure this out, except maybe for the Obi-Wan movie, which Disney thinks it should have made instead of Star Wars. I don't know exactly what that means, but the way it was written here probably means Star Wars Solo, a Star Wars story. They probably rightly figured that the Obi-Wan movie would have been more successful than the Solo film because everybody wants to see Ewan McGregor come back. See, that is the smart thing. You see how the episode films made it to $1 billion, over $1 billion. Why? Everybody wanted to see Harrison Ford come back as Han Solo. Everybody wanted to see Luke Skywalker as played by Mark Hamill. Everybody wanted to see Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. So everybody wants to see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the problem is there aren't too many more ways you can do films like this. As I said, I think they could probably rope in Mark Hamill for a bunch more films should they have let him survive Episode 7, but they were thinking that they were smarter than the fans, and what the fans wanted was irrelevant. As Rian Johnson, Darth Ryan there, said many times, we can't think of what the fans want. So basically, they're not thinking what the fans want. They're just thinking what they want. And of course, they bet their chips on Han Solo movie because they figured the character was enough to let them get a pass. But I think if they were smart, they would try to recruit, the old school actors. Not even necessarily the original trilogy actors. Like I'm trying to think of who else, because almost everybody was killed off in the prequel trilogy by necessity. I mean, we could bring back Hayden Christensen and have him under heavy prosthetic, maybe under the Darth Vader mask for a film as a Darth Vader film. That would be cool. Darth Vader, The Purge. I think everybody would love that. That would be successful. You could conceivably, they already brought back Bail Organa in Rogue One, but I guess you could conceivably bring back Jimmy Smits for a young Princess Leia movie, and since it would sort of be again tethered to the you could do that, I guess. Could be tethered to the original actors, because I think also that level of trying to keep it tethered to the original films is what made Rogue One successful. You still had, even though Genevieve O'Reilly wasn't Mon Mothma in the original prequel trilogy, she was in the cutscenes, and that kind of felt authentic. It felt like a connective tissue, and other things as well. I mean, you could bring back, like they did in Rogue One, a lot of the footage of Red Leader and Gold Leader, and you could try to work things around in that way and be creative. I think that's the way to go about it, rather than just coming up from whole cloth stuff like whatever Ryan Johnson's going to do, whatever the Game of Thrones guy's going to do. And again, I'm someone that liked Solo, a Star Wars story. I wouldn't mind more spin-off films in that nature, but you are going to run the barrel dry pretty soon, scrape the bottom of the barrel, the well run dry. I'm mixing two metaphors, but I think you get the idea. All right, so to wrap this up, Disney thinks it should have made the Obi-Wan movie. However, while this movie is not officially on hold, it's also not on the front burner either. Lastly, while episode 9 is still on, it's already started filming, it's too late for any major course corrections. Kathleen Kennedy has ceded all creative control to director J.J. Abrams, maybe to spare herself further blame, maybe because she just wants to sit this one out, or who knows, maybe because Disney wants the ball in someone else's hands. So she's basically trying to get J.J. Abrams to clean up this mess and do something that will appeal to the fans at least as much as The Force Awakens did, although, as I said, I'm one of those who was not entirely thrilled with The Force Awakens, so I'm not really looking forward to this with great enthusiasm. But who knows? Can Abrams clean up the mess? That's a good question. Hopefully he can, but that's a tall order at this point, after Ruin Johnson got his hands in it. Grace Randolph alludes to a point which she made before, which is that Star Wars never appealed to Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy didn't like the franchise because it was indeed a boys' franchise. Instead of making boys' adventure films she didn't get and didn't like, she made it into something she could, a girls' empowerment fantasy. Her quote, Kennedy's quote, was, "I have a responsibility to the company that I work with. I don't feel that I have a responsibility to cater in some way. I would never just seize on saying, well, this is a franchise that appealed primarily to men for many, many years, and therefore I owe men something." Well, Kennedy, Darth Kennedy, that is why you are going to be booted out of this company. Because as I said before, and I said it when I went to see Solo, every time I've seen a Star Wars film after opening week, the repeat viewings are all consisting majority of men. The majority of men comprise the repeat business of Solo. And so when you go see a Star Wars movie the second or third time, after the week after it's come out, you're going to see a majority of men in that theater. It wasn't even, I think it was opening week. It wasn't even the week after when I saw Clone Wars, the movie. It was an entirely male audience. I was in there again, between 20 and 30 other people in the theater. And, a couple of them are kids. Let's say it was about 2 or 3 children, mostly men, mostly adult men. So when you're going to try to ostracize the leading segment of your fandom by calling them man babies, thank you, Darth Ruin, you are going to find yourself bankrupt very soon. And a lot of angry people boycott Solo. I did not boycott Solo because, the film to punish is going to be episode 9. That is the one that they built from the ground up. That is the one that is going to either cement their legacy or cement their failure. Cement their legacy as success or failure. All right, so let me know what you think here about this. Of course, the word also is, that's not in this story, but the word is also that Kennedy is going to be released in September. They want to get someone to replace her by then, and of course the wheels are already turning on episode 9, so not much is going to change there. It's still probably going to stink. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Who would you like to replace Kathleen Kennedy? And of course, we all know the Ruin Johnson is not going to make that film. Roundhead Ryan is not ever going to get his mitts on a Star Wars movie again. That is going to be delayed inevitably until he gets another project that will cause him to save face and say, well, he'd rather do this because the studio was taking too long and so on and so forth. But we all know that's never going to happen. The Roundhead Ryan trilogy and Darth Kathleen is also going to be shown the door and out the space lock. And as the segment is called, did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Kennedy, the not-so-wise? Well, now you have. All right, our final order of business here, and we're probably going to go overtime the way we usually do because I am so verbose. We've got, and because I'm making so many mistakes, because, hey, I don't know, it's an off day, everybody's entitled to one. We've got the Titans synopsis here. Now, this is going to be somewhat spoilerish. That is why I saved this for the end instead of Star Wars, because we usually like to save our Star Wars stories for the end. But in case you don't want to know anything else about Titans before it airs, you can feel free to drop out of the conversation right now and, you know, come back after you see the show, which I guess is still tentatively scheduled for fall of this year when DC Universe, the new subscription service, is released to an unsuspecting public. All right. A website called Splash Report gave out this review of the pilot of Titans. And of course, we were also treated to an image of Brenton Thwaites as Dick Grayson here as Robin the Boy Wonder. Yes, he is going to be playing Robin. He is not going to be playing Nightwing, which they're going to get into in a second here. But some criticism about the costume. It's dark. It's like very Snyder-esque. The original picture that we saw of him in costume looked a lot better than this, and it was more vibrant color. I have a feeling this is just for mood lighting and so forth, that he's out in the street and the smoky rooftops and stuff. I think it'll probably look a little bit better in stark daylight, but there you have it. Okay, here's the report, and I will offer my 2 cents when it is warranted. The pilot of Titans is centered on 3 heroes, Robin, Raven, and Starfire. Brenton Thwaites, Tegan Croft, and Anna Diop. But it begins with a flashback, the Flying Grayson Circus. So that is very exciting to me because I love the Dick Grayson origin, the Robin origin. I love the circus origin. And like I said, beside Batman Forever, we haven't really seen it in live action, nor will we probably ever see it in live action, but we are going to get it here. So this might be sort of your companion to the DCEU films. This is probably what we're going to get for Dick Grayson, I guess. So they do have a Nightwing movie in the works, but I'm thinking maybe this will be the sort of the connective tissue maybe between Batman v Superman and Nightwing. This will be the inside events, the inside baseball. The Flying Grayson Circus flashback is used as both a primer to the backstory of Dick Grayson, Robin, and an introduction to Rachel Roth, Raven. It does a respectable job at making the audience understand Robin's character, akin to that of Bruce Wayne in the Batman films. It also gives a robust taste of what's to come with Raven. So Raven's there, I guess, when this happens. I hope it's not she's responsible for the death of the Graysons. I mean, that would be a bummer. It's supposed to be what was the guy's name that killed Robin's parents? I can't remember that now. There was that great episode, Robin's Reckoning, in the animated series. And I can't remember what his name is right now, though. A robust taste of what's to come with Raven, highlighting her unstable psyche and untapped power. However, the rest of the pilot is structured very much around the individual heroes. Each first act begins with a Chiron separating the protagonists from each other. In this sense, it could be considered similar to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where each hero is given an introductory film to get the audience invested and are then brought together in an ensemble movie. All right, so that's pretty good. They're gonna do separate stories with them before they bring them together to sort of meld them more naturalistically rather than just throw them all together in a big pot. Before we get into the individual character breakdowns for the first episode, I think it's important to discuss the tone of the show. Titans is very much not a series for children. There are multiple F-bombs and S-bombs, among other swear words, that make it seem like they're going for an R rating. Moreover, the action is brutal, with bone snaps, people being shot, burned, and mangled. Uh, what? What? So we're going to have an R-rated Teen Titans? Is that what this is supposed to be about? I don't like that idea at all. You know where I stand. You know where I stand if you've watched me long enough. You know where I stand on this. I don't believe superhero properties should, by and large, be R-rated. I didn't think Logan needed to be R-rated. Tone down the violence a little bit, and it would be fine. I don't think the Deadpool should have been R-rated. I think you can do the same kind of jokey, ridiculous humor as long as you're not cursing and mentioning body parts, and maybe you tone down the violence. I don't think that the Netflix shows need to be R-rated because they basically are just throwing in F-bombs. I mean, I think they do like one F-bomb a show, and then they do like any other manner of swearing. And then they got the gratuitous violence. So basically, this sounds like a Netflix version of Titans, which, again, I watched the Netflix shows, the majority of them. I still haven't seen a couple of them. I haven't seen Jessica Jones or Punisher, but Jessica Jones 2 I haven't seen. But I don't know. This doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. It's a departure from the more joyful tone that many associates with the group. But it's a departure I feel is for the best. Well, that's him talking. Speak for yourself. It's refreshing to see a DC show that's no holds barred instead of shying away from the more mature aspects of the mythology. It's not as adult as something like Jessica Jones, but it's far darker than anything DC has put out on the small screen thus far. What separates Titans from some of Marvel's darker shows is the fact that it doesn't ever really aim to be realistic. Titans doesn't shy away from the big fantastical spectacle and instead embraces the comic roots of the characters. So that's pretty good, at least. They're not going to try to say, I guess Starfire is still going to be an alien. They're going to say Raven is still some kind of mystic chick. I don't know. We can have a realistic Robin fight scene, but we can also have Starfire blasting away goons with a burst of fire. It's a mixture of realism and fantasy that I think works great. Robin is the first character we are introduced to. At this stage in his life, decades after the Flying Grayson incident, Dick Grayson is in a terrible place. It's not the Robin many of you are accustomed to. Oh, that's great. They're going to make him a downer and a miserable SOB. Really? Do we need to do that with Robin? The most upbeat and lighthearted character, at least in the Batman family. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can make a case for Batgirl, but Robin, Dick Grayson, is the most lighthearted of them all. He doesn't work with Batman anymore after growing to hate him and leaving Gotham for San Francisco. Oh man, this is getting worse and worse by the reading, by the word. So this to me seems like what they did with the animated series. Now, as much as I loved Batman the animated series, when they got to the Gotham Knights Adventures, I think it was called, that portion of it, they had the Nightwing thing happen, and they didn't have Batman and Robin separating on good terms, really. It was basically because Dick thought that Bruce was an inhuman monster and he's treating people terribly and it's all about the mission. And it's true. I hate the inhuman Batman. I hate when they give us the inhuman Batman. Batman is flesh and blood like the rest of us. He has his moods. He has his emotions. He has his likes and dislikes. I don't necessarily agree with the Bruce Wayne died when his parents died and Batman was born and he never had a childhood and he never had I think he was more pragmatic than other children his age. But if his parents died when he was 10 years old or whatever he was, because they vacillate on that one in the different origins. Sometimes he's like 8, sometimes he was like 12. I mean, I think 10 is sort of the default age they kind of give him. I don't really believe that he ceased being a human being then. And even Batman the Animated Series sometimes had their moments of wallowing that I didn't agree with. Heel, Dick Grayson, he'll sometimes turn, what is it? Oh, okay. He'll sometimes see a shadow of Batman only to turn around and realize it's his own. He's afraid of becoming like Bruce. Nevertheless, he still wears the Robin suit instead of a Nightwing costume, which would make much more sense. In this iteration of the character, Grayson has taken up the career of being a detective on the police force. Does that mean we're going to get the John Blake type thing here, where he's going to do the police thing? I don't know. I could have done without that. As far as the Robin costume is concerned, I personally never understood why he had to give up the Robin costume. Because at the time, that was his character. He chose that. He wasn't the legacy character. He chose that because he admired Robin Hood. And he wanted to be emulating Robin Hood. Sort of the devil may care, merry men, that whole thing, the colorful costume, because it represented also the Flying Graysons, that it was, more of a flashy thing than Batman ever had. Why he would give that up, I don't know. Why would he give that up and create a new persona that was darker when he didn't want to be like Bruce? Didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm pretty much happy that he kept the Robin costume. I mean, the only reason why he should lose the Robin costume in any capacity is that if they want to bring in, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, you kind of need them to have the Robin suits. So you got to make that available to them. So I can see then maybe having him move on. But since they kept him as Robin in this, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, that doesn't disappoint me. We are introduced to some of the series side characters like Detective Rohrbach and Wolf. And we also notice Grayson's plain apathy towards them. See, Robin doesn't work with people anymore. After what Batman did to him, he shut himself off from any relationships, absorbing himself in his work. So it sounds like basically he is Batman. I mean, this doesn't sound like Dick Grayson to me. I don't know. It's an exciting choice for the character, and his development throughout the season will be one of its central pillars. We also get a glimpse of the action of the show, which looks to be phenomenal. Well, that sounds good. Maybe this is just a place we find Dick Grayson in, which I can understand. Hopefully he'll become a more robust character once he joins the Titans. Which, are they going to ever be the Teen Titans in this, or is this just going to be they're going to start as the Titans? They're not going to start off as teenagers. Apparently they're not. I don't know. We'll see. From there, we are taken to the next Chiron, Raven. Here we get a more extensive look into the character of Rachel Roth than in the cold open. We get to see more of her mother, Angela, an insomniac, trying to manage taking care of a problematic child like Raven. It's been difficult. Raven's powers are also given some spotlight early on, highlighting a deeply disturbed, almost demonic individual residing inside her. That's kind of creepy. I don't know about that, but then again, we already been through that with Legion, so I guess if I could deal with that there, I can deal with it here. Rachel's neighbors are well aware of her strangeness, as are her classmates who regularly bully her. I don't know if you want to bully someone that's got some kind of demonic force in them. You want to get her to an exorcist, I would think. I seen the Justice League versus Teen Titans. I was never a big Raven fan, to be totally honest with you, but that was an interesting look into the character. If you really want to know what Raven's about, check that movie out. I think you would probably be up to speed for this show if you have no idea who this character is, because I'm not a big fan or knowledgeable about the character, but what I learned from Teen Titans versus Justice League will be probably very beneficial watching this show. It's clear that Raven's relationships at school are going to be a big part of her storyline moving forward. It is also within this act that we are introduced to one of the main antagonists of the story, the Acolyte, a mysterious hitman whose intentions and superiors are unclear, but hint at a more extensive narrative at play. So that sounds to me like they're trying to do Slade. They're trying to do Deathstroke without Deathstroke, the Acolyte. The Acolyte does sound familiar. I think that's another character. Might that be from like the Judas Contract or something? Because I seen that video too, I think. But I don't remember if that was the name of the character. Without spoilers, let's say the Acolyte prompts some change within Rachel's life that launched the entire show into motion. All right, that's interesting. Before we get to the next Chiron, we are given some more story developments with Robin and Raven, and then the next act, Starfire. She is probably the most intriguing character in the pilot episode, introduced in an enthrallingly enigmatic fashion. When we first meet her, Starfire is in smack in. It says that. That's not me making a mistake. This is just worded wrong. Starfire is in smack in the middle of a car crash. Her driver is embedded in the bloodied windshield. This is going to be one of these things that I'm going to have to turn my eyes from. And armed men are chasing her for a reason unknown to us. Also, I think this is a good time to mention her outfit and appearance. Oh, please tell me that she is going to be orange with red hair and green eyes. As the recent set photos have caused some controversy amongst fans, Starfire is introduced to us the night after a disco party. Got it in big letters. Disco party. The reason she looks like someone out of a 1970s club is that she was at one. Her dress and hairstyle aren't part of her usual look, so everyone needs to relax a bit and wait for the official image. So I guess that means that he's not confirming that she's going to be orange. That doesn't really instill me with a whole lot of hope. Okay, back to the story. On the escape, Starfire finds out she has multiple passports and can speak multiple languages. That's kind of weird. I thought she came from another planet. What is that all about? The identity of this woman is an absolute mystery. Some more events transpire, which I won't divulge into for spoiler's sake, and she is propelled on a mission that will sow the seeds for Titans. We are chronologically reaching the end of the pilot, so the following will be very vague to avoid ruining some of the best moments of the episode. Towards the end, the culmination of the previous 50 minutes takes a head. There's spectacle, violence, and mystery. Wait a second. Okay. That acts as both a satisfying finish for the episode and a definite beginning for the rest of the show. The absolute greatest, the most jaw-dropping moment of the pilot happens here, and it's so good, but you'll have to see the episode yourself to find out what it is. And he wraps it up here with his impressions. Overall, the pilot for Titans is an excellent introduction to the series. We get an overview of the show's central characters, the darker tone, some of the action, and a taste of the taste of the grander narrative at play. For those disenfranchised with DC's latest TV shows or even cheesy superhero shows in general, be on the lookout for this one. So in other words, this is not going to be fun and lighthearted like the Arrowverse, but it's going to be dark and gloomy like the Netflix Marvel shows or Cloak and Dagger for that point. I don't know. What do you think about this? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about Titans being a dark, somewhat gloomy series? I'm sort of having problems with Cloak and Dagger and the amount of darkness, and that's about two teenagers. I don't really know if I could deal with this show any darker than Cloak and Dagger right now, particularly when I've got the Netflix shows that I've really been dragging my feet getting back to because I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to get Netflix because I'm really curious about Luke Cage, which I believe, what's the bad guy's name of this season? Bushwhacker, I think his name is. He looks really cool. And I like Mike Coulter. I think he's great as Luke Cage. Of course, a lot of people say, well, he's not the 70s Luke Cage, which is like, you know, I'll put my fist in your face, fool. You know, sort of like the Mr. T Luke Cage. And yeah, that would be fun to have that, but you can't carry a series, I don't think, like that with that kind of an actor. So what would be fun is if they finally get the Heroes for Hire series going, have these two guys together, and then he could probably take on more characteristics of that 70s Luke Cage. Because he would be like a side, you know, not a side character, but he would be a co-star, and he would be able to get away with more stuff like that without like hurting the narrative. But I'm probably going to get Netflix once Iron Fist season 2 comes out, which I believe is coming out in the fall. So I'll watch them both back to back, so I won't have to pay for 2 months. I'll just pay for 1 month and get them both. I used up my free trial twice already. I mean, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, they offered it back to me. It's not like I did any flim flam. I got the free trial, and then they gave me another free trial later saying, we miss you. Don't you like when you get that email from one of these subscription companies? We miss you. At least they gave me another free trial, so. And I paid for it a couple times after that. So, I mean, I've done my share. All right. So I don't know. Like I said, my favorite Robin is Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson, one of my favorite characters in the DC universe. I am looking forward to seeing him. Uh, I've got kind of conflicted feelings about what they're doing with the show. I don't really know how I'm going to feel about it, but I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually see the show. And, I'll make up my mind after I've seen it. I don't really want to stick a fork in this one until I know that it's done. So let me know what you think. What do you think about Titans? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you once again for joining me on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live, our big 94th live broadcast. 93rd edition of the Torch News Roundup is in the books. Thank you for being here. God love you for being here. As always, I appreciate every single view, every single subscriber, every single comment. I read every single one of them. Of course, there's not many, but I still read them, and I will respond to them if you have any questions live. Again, if you're watching the show, what do you think I should do for my big 100th live broadcast? That should be coming up, pretty soon. Obviously, we're on the 94th broadcast. So if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have a subject you'd like me to discuss, a topic for a video, let me know in the comments below. Now is the time. Now is the time for action. And we will probably have another video on Wednesday. The schedule tends to be Wednesdays and Saturdays and sometimes Mondays. So we'll see how I feel about a Monday video, depending on what is going on at the time, because that will be just heading into our Independence Day celebration there on Monday. Will be the 2nd of July. So until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.